Hey podcasters, welcome to PodSearch. In this short video, you'll learn how to add your podcast to PodSearch. It's an easy 3-step process. Create a podcaster account, create your podcast profile page, and choose a credit card for monthly payments. Let's get started. Go to podsearch.com. The first step is to set up your account. Select the Are You a Podcaster link at the top right. Then click Get Started Now at the bottom of the page. Enter a username, email address, and create a password. After you've reviewed the terms and conditions and checked the Agree to the Terms and Conditions box, click Submit. Okay, step 2. Create your podcast profile page. First, make sure you're logged into your podcaster account using your email address and password. Then click Create My Podcast Listing. The more information you enter here, the more robust and compelling your podcast profile page will look to new listeners and potential sponsors. Here's a quick look at each item. First, enter the title of your podcast. Next, PodSearch lets you choose up to 2 categories for your podcast. So click the Select button to see the available options. Select a category to reveal its subcategories. Again, you can make up to 2 selections from the categories list. Next is your podcast description. This should be 1 to 2 short paragraphs that explain what your podcast is all about. An accurate description is important because as listeners search for podcasts, the platform will be searching descriptions to find the best possible matches. Every word on your page is searchable, but if there are other tags in addition to what's on your page, here's the place to enter them. Choose up to 10 keywords or phrases that listeners may search to find your podcast. You should include common misspellings of your podcast title or host name. The keywords will not display on your public profile page, but again are searchable to help listeners find your podcast. Next, enter the name of your podcast host or hosts. Then enter your host or host's bio. Good details to include are a brief description of the host's background and their expertise on the podcast topic. Next, put in your launch date. Shows launched in the last 3 months appear in our New Shows category. Then enter the average downloads your show receives per episode, unless of course your show is brand new with no listeners yet. This number is not shown publicly, but it does help PodSearch rank your show in the search results. Your hosting platform can usually provide this number. Next, enter your hosting platform like Libsyn, Art19, Megaphone, or Podbean. Now let's give your listeners some additional information to really help bring your podcast profile page to life. You can enter your podcast website, Facebook page, Twitter, and up to 3 additional web pages to promote your podcast or business. This can include donation links, links to coaching services, bookstore links, event links, or anything else you'd like your listeners to see. You can update these additional links as often as you'd like. If your show is open to advertising, enter the name and email address of the person who handles advertising for your podcast. Potential sponsors can contact you directly through the PodSearch site. The message will go to the listed email address. At the top right of the form, add your podcast logo and take note of the recommended dimensions. You can also add additional photos of your hosts, live events, or any other relevant photos to display on your profile page. Next, enter the podcast player links where listeners can listen to your podcast episodes, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and up to 4 additional player links. Don't forget to add your podcast website if you stream episodes there as well. In the next section, you can upload up to 2 short audio samples to display on your profile page, along with a brief description of each. This is a great way to give listeners a compelling preview of your podcast and motivate them to start listening right away. We recommend 2 to 4 minute samples. And lastly, do you have a YouTube video that promotes your podcast or business? If so, this can really help with listener engagement. Paste the YouTube video URL and enter a brief description. Okay, your podcast profile page is complete. The third and final step is to activate your listing by submitting your credit card payment. Click Go to Payment. Then click Continue. Ensure your podcast listing is selected, and then select Buy Credit Card and click Next. Enter your billing information and click Pay by Credit Card. Success! Your PodSearch listing is now active and searchable on the PodSearch site and app. So remember, to get your podcast listed on PodSearch, just complete these 3 simple steps. Create a podcaster account, fill in the listing fields, then make your first payment. That's it. And if you have multiple shows and need to create multiple listings, no problem. Just repeat steps 2 and 3 for each podcast. If you have any questions, we're here to help. Thanks for being a part of PodSearch.